So we discussed about that in object-oriented programming. So each and every real-time entity will represent as a class will represent, right? Each and every real-time entity will represent as a class will represent. Okay. Let's say, for example, in the entire object-oriented programming, so mainly you have to understand these four things. You have to understand each and every real-time entity will represent as a class will represent. Each and every real-time entity will represent as a class will represent. Let's say you can consider anything as a class. Let's say, for example, a person. A person is a class. A mobile is a class. Okay. Or let's say a chair is a class. A table is a class. A car is a class. Bike is a class. Like each and every real-time entity you can consider as a class. You can consider. If you take each and every class consists of two things. The class consists of a class describes. A class describes about two things. What are the two things? A class describes about what? The data and behavior. A class describes about the two things. One is the data and one more thing is what? Behavior. One is data, another thing is what? Behavior. A class describes about two things. One is data and second thing is behavior. But originally who contains the data and behavior? Originally who contains this data and behavior? This object. Object consists of this data and behavior. A class describes about the data and behavior, but originally who contains the data and behavior? Object. Object consists of the data and behavior. Originally who contains the data and behavior? Object contains the data and behavior. Okay, so this is what we discussed, right? In the previous class, this is what we discussed. And we've seen a lot of examples for this one. Let's take, for example, today I'm taking an example, for example, a person, let's take a man, a person, let's take, for example, let's take a person is a class. What I'm taking, person is a class. And we've seen, right, we're talking about this data. Data of a class will be defined by using what? The data types. We are having different data types like int, float, character, boolean, like this. We are having different data types out there. Right? We've seen that data types we've seen in the last class, previous class. Okay. Okay. I'm creating a Java class. I'm creating here. I'm creating a new Java program. I'm creating a new Java program. I'm creating a class. I'm creating here. I'm using this edit plus. Edit plus is an ID I'm using. Edit plus a text editor for writing these Java programs. I'm creating a class. I'm creating. What is the class name I'm specifying is? Person is a class name I specified. Class. Person is a class name I specified. And we discussed already the execution of a program in case of Java. The execution of a program is going to start with main method. I'll explain you why they define the syntax like this, public static void main. Why the syntax like this? So I'll explain you. But as of now, just blindly follow this one. It's similar to main method in case of your C program. Execution of a Java program is going to start with main method. So we are creating a class called person is a class. An execution of a program is going to start with main method. Inside this method, let's say, for example, if you consider each and every person will have some data. We'll have some data, right? Okay. So let's take every person will have some age, and every person will have some height. Every person will have some weight, right? And every person will have a name. Okay. So this is all nothing but data. This is all nothing but data. This data, based on the type of data what you're using, you have to choose the data type you have to choose here. Let's say you want to hold the person age. Person age means nothing but let's take maximum. Maximum will get around 120 or 130 like that, right? So let's choose a type here called byte is a type. Byte I specified, age I specified. Byte, age I specified. Age is equals to, let's say, for example, I specified 25, 28 I specified. Every person will have some, let's say, for example, height. So height in a sense, you're going to get a decimal values. Let's say I'm taking float, I'm taking here. Float height is equals to, I'm specifying 5.8 F. Because we discussed already, local variables should be initialized. Local variables should be what? Initialized. We had to give some value to the local variables. We had to specify the value. This is one thing. And in case of float, in case of your Java programming language, if you are specifying any decimal values, if you are specifying, it's mandatory we have to specify F to represent it's a float type of value. Every person will have some weight. Let's say, for example, a weight, maybe it's maybe more than 130 or 140 like that. I'm taking a type called int. I'm taking a type. Weight is equals to, let's take, I'm specifying 200, for example. 200 is the weight I specified. Like, if you take any class, you'll get requirement of holding some data. Based on the type of data, what type of data you want to hold. Based on that, we had to choose the data type. We had to choose here. We specify the data type we specified. Simply we insert a values we inserted, and I want to print the values I want to print. Let's write system.out.println. Same like your printf statement in case of C programming language. Same like your printf statement in C programming language. Here we are going to use system.out.println. System.out.println. I'm printing the age. I'm printing. Even I'll explain this statement also. System.out.println. As of now, it's similar to printf statement in C programming language to print some value on the console. Okay. Age I'm printing. Next, height I'm printing, as well as weight I'm printing. Printing the age I'm printing, height and weight. What are the values we stored in this data type? We are printing that values we are printing. Let's say the program. Person.java. Let's say the program person.java. We discussed, right? Whatever the name we specified for the class, okay. So we had to save the program also. We had to save with the same name. We had to save this program also. I'm saving this program in my C drive. I'm creating a folder. I'm creating here with the name called Java 9:30 p.m. With the name called Java 9:30 p.m. I'm creating a folder. I'm creating Java 9:30 p.m. In this folder, I'm saving the file with the name called person.java is the file name I'm specifying here. Person.java. Click on this save button. Click on save. So we created Java class. We created the name called person is the class name. Okay. Let's compile this and run the program. Okay. We created a Java program written here. Let's compile the program. Go to command prompt. First of all, we had to move to the location where you saved this Java program. I saved this Java program in the C drive. Java 9:30 p.m. folder. I created this file. So right now we are available in the users in the C drive. Users Mahesh folder we are available now. Write cd double dot, meaning change the directory. Dot in the sense nothing but dot is going to represent the current folder. Dot is going to represent the current folder. We are specifying double dot. We are specifying, meaning move to the previous folder. I'm specifying here move to the previous folder. Again, I'm writing cd double dot, meaning move to the previous folder. What is the previous folder for users? The previous folder for users is nothing but the C drive. The previous folder for users is what? The C drive. In this C drive, let's write cd space, change to the directory. To which directory you want to move, we have to specify the folder name, we have to specify directory name. I want to move to this directory called Java 9:30 p.m. is the directory because we saved the Java file in this folder. We saved the Java file cd space Java 9:30 p.m. In this Java 9:30 p.m. we saved the file we saved with the name called person.java. We saved the file we saved with the name called what? Person.java. Let's compile that program first. Java C space. Let's specify a Java class name person.java. Java C person.java. So here we are using a command called Java C. Where this Java C is located? In the JDK. What will happen if you use this Java C? It's going to compile your Java code, meaning it's going to check, it's going to check whether you followed the rules of Java or not. If you followed the rules of Java language, if you followed the rules, then it is going to produce a dot class file will be produced in the same current folder. So I specified Java C person.java. If everything is fine, you're going to get in the C drive, the same folder. We create a folder, we created the name called Java 9:30 p.m. In this Java 9:30 p.m. observe here, we created a .java file we created. We got this .class file. Once if you compile the program, you're going to get this .class file will be generated. We call as Java bytecode. Then execute this Java program, Java person. Let's enter. See here, we got the output. We got 28, 5.8, and 200. 28, 5.8, and 200. Okay. Let's see here internally what happened in this particular program. Internally, what happened in this particular program? We'll try to understand that execution. We'll try to understand. So after writing this program, person.java, we compile the program. Correct or not? We compile the program. So by using Java C, we compile the program. So Java C in the sense nothing but just it's going to check whether you followed the rules of Java programming language or not. That's it. It's going to check whether you followed the rules of Java programming language or not. Okay. But who is going to execute your program? I mean, who is going to run the program? JVM. So JVM is going to run the program. Correct or not? Let's see what happened, how your JVM is executed this one. So give me a second. I'll try to. Okay. So here, so who is going to execute the program is nothing but JVM is going to execute the program. JVM is going to execute a Java program. So JVM will be loaded into the RAM. Okay, JVM is going to be loaded into where? Into the RAM. Into JVM is going to be loaded. JVM is going to be loaded into the computer RAM. Computer is having a RAM, right? It's going to be loaded into the RAM. It's going to load JVM. So in JVM, there is a memory unit called. There is one. There are three phases are there: class loader, memory unit, and execution engine in the JVM. Okay. So in JVM, there is a section called memory unit. In JVM, there is a section called what? Memory unit. In this memory unit, there are some different memory units are there. Stack is on memory unit. Heap is on memory unit. Stack memory unit, heap memory unit, and string pool memory is on memory unit. Like this, there are some different memory units are there. Like this, there are some different memory units are there. Okay. So here, execution of a program is going to be starts with main method. Execution of a program is going to be starts with a main method. So in JVM memory unit, each and every method is going to be loaded into a stack frame. There is one memory unit in the JVM memory unit. What is that one? Stack. What is it one? Stack. There is a memory unit called stack. Each and every method is going to be loaded into this stack memory unit. Each and every method is going to be loaded into the stack. For each and every method, it's going to create a stack frame. For each and every method, it's going to create one frame will be created. For each and every method, it will create what? It will create a frame, it will create. Let's take main frame. Let's take what? The main frame. Into this JVM stack, the main frame is going to be loaded first. Like this for each and every method. One frame is going to be created first. In this stack frame, let's see here. I'll try to expand this one. In this JVM stack memory unit, each and every method is going to be loaded into this stack frame. Each and every method is going to be loaded into this stack frame. Each and every method will be loaded. Okay. So we created type we created here, byte type we created. Byte in the sense nothing but if we specify byte, if we specify how much space will be allocated for byte? 8 bits, correct or not? For byte, how much space will be allocated? 8 bits of space will be allocated for a byte. 8 bits of space will be allocated for this byte. 8 bits. 8 bits of space will be allocated for this byte type. In the stack mainframe, it's going to allocate this 8 bits, meaning 1 byte is equals to 8 bits, correct or not? So it's going to allocate 8 bits of space in the JVM stack, and we are giving a name we are giving for this address location. We are giving a name we are giving for this address location. What is the name we configured? Age is the name we configured. Age is the name we configured. What about this height? Height is what type? It is a float type, right? It's a float type. Float type means how many bytes will allocate? 4 bytes. 4 bytes of space will be allocated for this float. 4 bytes of space will be allocated for this float. It's going to allocate 4 bytes of space will be allocated. And we are giving a name for this 4 bytes of space. We are giving a name we are giving for this 4 bytes of space. We are giving a name we are giving. What is the name we configure for this 4 bytes of space? We are giving the name we are giving as height is the name we are configuring here. We are configuring as what? Height is the name we are configuring. In the same way, let's say we created integer type we created. Integer also same thing. For integer also it's going to allocate 4 bytes of space will be allocated for int also. It will be allocate 4 bytes of space will be allocated for int also. It will allocate 4 bytes of space. For this 4 bytes of space, we are giving a name we are giving for this 4 bytes of space. What is the name we are configuring here? Weight. Weight is the name we are configuring for this 4 bytes of space. Okay. Okay. So these are called as local variables. These are called as local variables, meaning the scope of this particular variable. The scope of this particular variables is nothing but we can access only within this frame, meaning only within that particular method only we can access. Outside the method, we cannot access. So clear, right? This one is clear. And one mandatory thing is what? We had to initialize. Definitely we had to initialize. The value should be initialized for the local variables. Okay. Let's take person is having an age, height, weight. Let's take every person, what do you call any other things? Height, weight, age, which you can measure in the numbers. Height, weight, age. Okay. Let's take for example, I'm specifying here. So every person will have some vital information, like for example, what is a BP? What is the blood pressure of a person? Next, what is a blood pressure or heart rate, or what is a pulse? What is the pulse of a person? What is the sugar levels? So this kind of information also is there, right? Okay. What I'm doing is I'm declaring this variable. I'm declaring here. I'm not declaring within this particular method. I'm not declaring this particular variable. I'm not declaring within the method. I'm declaring this type. I'm declaring outside the method. Outside the method, outside this main method, I'm declaring this type. I'm specifying here. Here I'm specifying. Let's take int. I'm taking pulse. I'm taking here int pulse. Let's take assume that pulse I specified as. Let's take my pulse is 77 is a pulse. The current pulse 77. Let's take. Let's assume that. And let's take. I'm taking int type. I'm taking int type, and I'm taking here. What is your glucose level, for example? I'm specifying this glucose. I'm specifying here. What is the glucose level? Let's say I'm specifying 64 is the glucose level I'm specifying. Just assume that I'm specifying some numbers, a pulse and glucose. Okay. So in this particular statement, Okay, glucose and pulse we specified outside this method. Outside this method, we declared these two variables we declared. Outside the method, we declared. So can we access here directly in this main method? In this method, like how we are printing these details, age, height, weight, in the same way, I'm printing these two data sums are printing here. System dot out.println. System.out.println. I'm printing here pulse. I'm printing. This is one thing. Pulse. Directly I'm printing the pulse. I'm printing here, and again I'm writing system.out.println. System.out.println. I'm specifying this. Glucose also I'm printing. I'm printing this glucose also I'm printing here. System.out.println of pulse. I'm printing system.out.println of glucose. I'm printing glucose. Okay. Say the program. Compile this program. Java C person.java. But see here, we are getting an error. We are getting here. The error is nothing but non-static variables pulse cannot be referenced from static quantity. It's giving an error. It's in here. We cannot access the non-static variables. We cannot access inside the static block. We cannot access. This is what it's telling here. Meaning, we cannot access these variables. These are the non-static variables. These non-static variables we cannot access inside this static block. We cannot access. So why we are getting this error, and how can you access this pulse value and the glucose value? How can you access? So these are called as instance variables. They are called as what? The instance variable. The second type of variables. We are talking about these variables, right? There are three types of variables: local variables, instance variables, and the static variables. So we got the second type of variable we are discussing now. What is that one? Instance variables. The name itself is describing instance. Meaning, if you want to access these variables, so we had to create an instance. Instance or object terminology is same. Instance or object terminology is what? Same. Meaning, we had to create an object. We had to create to access these two variables. We had to create an object. We had to create for these two variables. Let's note here first what exactly these instance variables. One second, just. So 1 second, just. I'm trying to open that notes. So put heading. Now last class we discussed about this local variable. Today's class will discuss about what? Instance variable. Okay. So if we declare a variable, outside a block within the class is called as instance variable. Is called as instance variable. If we declare a variable outside the block and within the class, outside a block within the class is called as what? Instance variable. For instance variables, memory will be allocated. For instance variables, memory will be allocated in heap. For instance variables, memory will be allocated in the heap area. In JVM memory unit, one memory unit called what? Heap area. Like stack, there is one memory unit called what? Heap. It's going to allocate the memory in the heap. Okay. So instance variables should not be initialized. Instance variables should not be initialized, meaning it's not mandatory. If you want, you can, you know, should not be initialized. Should not be initialized if the variable is not initialized. If the variable is not initialized, it will give default value. What default value will be given? You give the default value. If you declare a variable outside the block, then it's called as what? Instance variable. And for these instance variables, memory will be allocated in the JVM heap. Memory will be allocated, and instance variables should not be initialized. Meaning it's not, that is optional. If you want, you can initialize. If you want, you can make it empty also. You can make it. Even if you make it empty, it's going to give you the default value. If the variable is not initialized, it will give the default values will be given. Okay, so we'll understand this one. Okay, now these two variables are called as these two variables. We declared these two variables outside this method, right? Pulse and glucose. These two are called as what? Instance variables. How to access these instance variables is we had to create the object we had to create, and when the memory is going to be allocated for this instance variables is when the memory is going to be allocated for this instance variables is when you create an object. When you create what? An object. So here in this main method, what I'm doing is how we create the object is, okay, we are getting the error is at this particular point, we are getting an error, right? Okay. So instance variables memory is going to be allocated when you create an object. How we'll create the object is by using new operator, new space, by using new operator space, specify the class name here. For which class you want to create an object, let's specify the class name here. For which class you want to create the object? In this, to this class only I want to create the object. What is the class name? Person is a class. How we'll create the object is by using new operator. We'll create the object space, specify what is the class name. Class name is nothing but what? Person is a class name. What is the class name? Person is a class name we specified. Object of person is a class name we specified. Now what happens is, for this particular, when you write this statement, new person, it is going to create an object. It's going to create an object in the heap. In JVM memory unit, one of the memory unit is nothing but what? Heap. One of the memory unit in the JVM is nothing but what? Heap is another memory unit in the JVM. Heap is one of the memory unit in the JVM. Heap is another memory unit in the JVM. Okay. Whenever you write this statement, new person of, whenever you write this statement, a new person of, it's going to create an object will be created in the heap. It is going to create an object will be created in the heap. It is going to create an object will be created in the heap. Assume that it's an object. It's an object for what? It is an object for which class? We create object for which class? We create object for person class. We created the object. We created the object for person class. We created the object we created for person. So these two are the instance variables, meaning this pulse and glucose. These two are the instance variables. Instance variables. So the memory is going to be allocated for these instance variables. These instance variables memory will be allocated in this object, in the heap. In this particular object only, it's going to allocate the memory for these two variables. One second, just. Okay. We created the object we created for which class? Person class we created the object we created. Now these two are the instance variables, pulse and glucose, meaning the memory is going to be allocated for these two variables in the heap. In this particular object only, memory will be allocated. In this particular object only, memory will be allocated for these two things. The memory will be allocated for particular these two variables within the object only. It's going to allocate for these two things. So what are the names we configured for these two things? One is pulse is a name we configured. One thing we configured the name for this one as pulse is a name we configured. We configure the name for this one as what? Pulse is a name we configured for this. And what is another one? Glucose. Okay. So these are called as instance variables. These are called as what? Instance variables. Meaning if you want to create, if you want to access these variables, if you want to access, we had to create an object we had to create. We had to create an object we had to create. When you create an object, see how you will create the object? How you will create the object is by using new operators, new person. When you write this statement, new of person, it's going to create an object will be created in the heap. It's going to create an object will be created in the heap. Okay, fine. Create a statement called new of person. It's going to create an object will be created in the heap. Object will be created. And you are executing the program. When you execute the program, when you run the program, execution of a program is going to start with main method. Execution of a program is going to start with what? Main method. Okay, some local variables are created, and after that you create an object you created for the person class. You create an object you create for the person class. When you write this new person of, one object will be created in the heap. One object will be created in the heap. So how you will access this object? There should be a link, right? There should be a link to this particular object and from the stack. Because execution of a program is going to start with this main. The main is going to be loaded into the stack frame. You created an object in the heap, you created an object, but there should be a link, right? There should be a link to access this particular pulse and glucose from the stack. There should be a link. How will you provide that link? How we'll provide that link is nothing but we'll give as a reference. We call as what? Reference. We'll see how to give that reference. Let's see how to give that reference in this main frame. And this main frame only, let's see how we'll provide that link to this particular object. How we'll provide that link to this particular object. How we'll provide the link to this particular object. What I'm specifying here is in this main method, person P is equals to new person I configured. What I configured is a way of creating the object. When you write this new person of, let's leave about this first left side statement. Let's consider about the right side statement first. This is a syntax of creating the object. This is a syntax of creating the object. When you write this new operator space class name, it's going to create the object will be created in the heap. But there should be a link to this particular object from your mainframe. There should be a link to this particular object from the mainframe. That link we are specifying as a reference. Person P is equals to new person. Meaning from the mainframe, we are creating a reference we are creating called person P. For this person object, we are creating a reference we are creating. What is the reference name we are specifying? P is a reference. P is a reference we are creating here. This particular reference is holding what? This particular reference is holding this person object. This particular reference is holding this object. Person object it is holding here. It is holding this person object it is holding. Got it? Okay. Let's say for example, once again we return the statement here. Okay. So meaning of this statement, P is nothing but just we specified person P. This P is a reference. This P is a reference for this person object. Object will be created in the heap. Object will be created for this particular object. We are giving a reference we given here. What is the reference name we specified? P is the reference name we specified. Okay. Now, if you want to access this particular variable, if you want to access the pulse or glucose, if you want to access this particular value, if you want to access, we had to specify with the help of this reference. With the help of this reference, what we specified P, we can access the P dot pulse, and P dot glucose. P dot pulse and P dot glucose. Let's save the program. Okay, let's save the program and now compile it and execute. Now you are going to get, without any errors, you will get the output you'll get. Let's see here. Java C person.java and Java person. See, we got 77 and 64. We got this pulse value we got, and we got this glucose value we got. We got the pulse value and we got the glucose value. So this particular statement is for creating the object. When you write this statement, it's going to create an object in the heap, JVM heap, it's going to create the object. There should be a reference, there should be a link to that particular object from your mainframe. There should be a link to this particular object from the mainframe. That's why we are giving a reference, we are specifying here person P is equals to new person, meaning we are specifying a reference. Was there is an object in the heap. There is an object in the heap. What this particular object belongs to which particular class? Person class. Meaning the P is a reference. If you want to access any data, if you want to access from this particular object, if you want to access any data, if you want to access, with the help of this P reference, we can access that object data we can access. Okay. So what I'm doing is, again, I'm writing this new person I'm writing again. Again, I'm writing this new person I'm writing. So what happens when you write this new person again? What happens when you write this new person again? I written a statement here. Again, I written a statement called new of person I specified. Meaning what will happen here? It's going to create one more object will be created in the heap for this person. Correct or not? Again, I written a statement called new person of here. So when you write this new person of, what will happen is it's going to create one more object. One more object will be created for this person in the heap. It's going to create one more object will be created for this person in the heap. This is another object. This another object will be created in the heap for the person. So again, it's going to allocate, the memory will be allocated for this pulse and glucose. Memory is going to be allocated for this pulse and glucose in this heap. The memory will be allocated here. In this heap only, memory will be allocated for this pulse and glucose. And a new object will be created. A new object will be created in the heap for this pulse and glucose. A new object will be created in the heap. When you write this new person off, it's going to create one more object will be created in the heap. But this particular object is not pointing with any reference, correct or not? This particular object is not pointing with any reference, meaning if you want to get the data from this particular object, if you want to get the data, what we required? We had to give one more reference, we had to specify. We had to specify one more reference, we had to specify to get the data from this particular object. Let's say, for example, I'm writing here, again, I'm writing person P1 is equals to new person. Person P1 is equals to what? New person. So meaning it's going to create one more object will be created. If we write this right side statement, it's going to create one more object will be created in the heap. And we get a reference called P1 is a reference. Now this P1 is pointing to what? Now this particular P1 is pointing to this particular object. This P1 is referring which particular object? This object, second object. When you call this P1 dot false, you are going to get the data from this particular object you are going to get. When you call p1.glucose, we'll get the data from this particular object. Okay. So now here p and p1 are called as the references. These are called as creating an object, the right side part. So these two are called as reference. P and P1 is called as what? Reference for this particular object. So if you want to access any data, if you want to access from this particular object, use this reference. Okay. So for example, you specified, okay, right side part is creating the object. Right side part is what? Creating the object, and we are holding the reference. We are holding the reference from the main. We are holding the reference. What happens if you specify only reference? For example, I specified here, I specified simply, I specified person, P2 I specified, that's it. Person, what we specified? P2 is specified. Meaning only we specified the reference we specified. We have not linked this particular reference if we are not linked with any particular object. We created only reference we created. We have not linked with any particular object. We have not linked. Then let's see here. Now what will happen? We created only reference we created. We created only reference is created here. We created only reference we created. What is the reference we specified? P2 is the reference we specified. P2. This P2 is not pointing with any object. It's not pointing with any object. Just we created a reference we created here. Just we are creating a reference we are creating here. We are not linking with any particular object. We are not linking here. Just we created a reference we created here. Just we create a reference. We are not linking with any particular object. We are not linking. Then at that time, what will happen? We are going to get as a null. The reference, the default value of any reference is nothing but null. If it is linked with any particular object, if you want, let's see here. I'm writing here system.out.println of. I'm writing this system.out.println of. I'm writing P1, I'm writing here. I'm writing P1 and system.out.println of. Observe here, what is the output you are going to get? System.out.println of. I'm printing this P1 reference I'm printing here and P2 reference I'm printing. P1 and P2 references I'm printing here. P1 is pointing to one particular object. P1 is pointing to one particular object. But P2, what is here? It's not linked with any particular object. It's not linked. P2 is not linked with any particular object. Let's see the program and run the program, and what is the output you are going to get? Java C person.java. Oh, why we got this error? Because see, P2 might not have been initialized because we are declaring as a local variable, right? We are declaring as a local variable. We are declaring. So local variable should be what? Initialize. Local variable should be initialized. Just you cannot declare it. Definitely some value should be initialized. So just remember, the default value is nothing but null. The reference default value is what? Null is a default value. Meaning we are specifying here this particular reference, P2 reference, is not pointing with any particular object. Null means nothing but we are specifying here the reference default value is nothing but null. The reference default value is what? Null. If it is not belongs to any, it's not pointing to any particular object. This particular reference is not pointing to any particular object. What is the default value? Null. If you save the program and if you run the program and see the output, what you will get? Java C person.java Java person. And see here, we got the address location we got because this particular object P1, when you print P1, we got some address location we got, meaning this object is created in the heap. This object is created in the heap. The object is created in the heap, and we got that address we got. When you print that object, we got the address location we got, where this particular object is created in the heap. The address location we got. But when you're printing this P2, when you're printing here, we got null we got here because this particular reference is not pointing to any particular object. That's why we got this null we got. Okay. So I hope you got the clarity about this instance variables, right? Instance variable is nothing but if you create a variable outside the method. If you create a variable outside the method, if you create any variable, it is called as an instance variable. For this instance variables, memory will be allocated in the heap. Memory will be allocated. Memory will be allocated in the heap. To access this instance variables, to access this instance variable, we had to create an object. We had to create an object. We had to create, and that object should be linked. That object should be linked from your from the method or from the frame by using a reference. So be clear with the object and reference, both are different. Object is going to be created in the heap. Object is going to be created in the heap. This particular object, we are pointing with this particular object, we are pointing from a method, from the main method. This is called as reference. P1, P2, P1, P2. These are what? The references. This particular reference is pointing to this particular object. Okay. So be clear with the terminology. Other thing is nothing but it's not mandatory to initialize this. It's not mandatory to initialize this instance variables. See here, for example, we've seen that the local variable should be initialized. Definitely, we had to give some value. We had to give to this local variables. But instance variables value should not be initial. It's not mandatory. If you want, you can make it empty. You can make. For example, this glucose and pulse is specified, right? This glucose and pulse is specified. I'm not initializing any value. I'm not initializing here. So int pulse, int glucose is specified. I have not given any value. I have not specified here. I have not specified any value. I have not specified this pulse and glucose. But I'm printing that values I'm printing here. See p dot pulse and p dot glucose. I'm printing that values I'm printing. Let's say the program. Let's say the program and compile it and run the program. Java C person.java Java person. See, we got a 0 and 0. So it's going to assign the default value will be assigned. Even if you don't initialize the value also, it's going to give you what? The default value will be Q for instance variables. So, some people is going to ask you, what is variable? How many types of variables are there? 3 types. Okay. What is the difference between local variable and instance variable? Then we have to specify. We declare within the block, it's called as local. Outside the block is called as instance. Local variable can be accessed only within the particular method. The instance variables you can access anywhere in the program, but we had to create an object. We had to create for accessing these variables. The third thing is nothing but instance variables should be initialized. It's mandatory. Local variables should be initialized. Instance variables should not be initialized. If you don't initialize, you'll get the default values will be got. Okay. So I'm using a terminology frequently. Let's take, for example, declare, assign, initialize, these kind of terminologies. What is the meaning of this declare, assign, and initialize? Let's see here. You declared a variable you declared, for example. Simply you specified like this, you specified. Int, for example, int x you specified, for example. And you are taking a type, one integer type you are taking as a age. This is called as declaration. Int space age. This is called as what? It's a declaration. This is called as what? It's a declaration. If you specify like this, int age, this is called as what? Declaration. We declared a variable we declared called age. If you specify like this, if you specify, for example, int age is equals to, for example, 28 you configure. Int age is equals to what? 28 you configure. This is called as what? If you write like this, this is called as assigning a value. Okay, so you specified, you specify like this is called as declaration. Int age is equals to 28. This is called as what? We are assigning some value, we are assigning to this one. We are assigning some value, we are assigning to this one. Or if you specify like this later, Initially, you can declare age, you can declare, and later you can specify what is the age value. You can configure age is equals to 28. Or basically, this is called as assigning a value. This is called as assigning value. If you give a value later like this, and we are assigning some value, we are assigning to this one. And if you write the logic like this, int age is equals to 28, this is called as initialization. Initialization. So be clear with the terminology here. If you just this is called as declaration. Just only we specified pipe, and if you specify variable, this is called as declaration. If you specify like this is called as what? It's a initialization. We initialize some value, we initialize for this one. And if you write like this, if you write, we are assigning a value, we are assigning here. For this particular type, we are assigning a value, we are assigning here. It's called as assigning a value. So be clear with the terminology, because if you understand the terminology, then only you can understand. Because future, completely I'm going to use the technical terms. Okay, declaration, initialization, assigning a particular value. Okay. So let me know if you have any queries on this today's session, what we discussed. Do you have any queries in the today's session, what we discussed? Okay. So I'm sending this program, I'm sending in the chat box, I'm sending here so that it will help you, for your reference. Oh. I hope you written this program, right? Have you noted this program? What I written here? So let's try to write the program and try to execute the program. Okay. And if you are having any doubts, please let me know in the next class. If you are having any errors, a compile time errors kind of thing, please ask me in the next class. Okay. So maximize this window. Okay. Let's take a snapshot. Otherwise, this is the first thing. Let's take a snapshot of this one. Later you can write the program. This is the first thing. Then after that, once if you take a snapshot, then I'll take the next one. I'll scroll up. So I'm right. You taken a snapshot, you taken. Okay. So then after that, this is the remaining part. This is the remaining part. It's the remaining code. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, we can write. That's what we are specifying, right? The first statement, person P is nothing but we are declared. You declared a value, you declared. You declare reference, you declared for person P, and later you are initializing that value. You are initializing here. P is equals to new person. Okay, but it's a local variable, right? If it is a local variable, first you have to make it as null. Person P is okay. You can write no issue. You can write like this also. You can write first declaring, and later you are assigning the value. You are assigning later. That's what I specified: declaration and assigning. Okay. So work on up to this. Okay. And tomorrow class we'll discuss about the static. We'll discuss later. And tomorrow we'll talk about the behavior part, meaning methods we'll discuss in the tomorrow session. We'll discuss. We're done with the data types and we are done with the variables. What is local variable and what is instance variable? Okay. Static variables is there. That concept we'll discuss when you're discussing about the static modifier. Tomorrow we'll discuss about the behavior part in a class, meaning how to create the methods, constructor and all. Okay. Okay then. Thank you guys. See you tomorrow. Thank you.